right, Stochastic, here we go. It's your old pal EMac coming to you with special guest Greg Ehrenberg, the rare Sunday night show for Greg, the rare show for me and you together. This is like a blast from the past. We did these several years back, but you've been banished to the flagship shows. You don't slum that often anymore. Although, wait a second, you're on darn near every show these days. But welcome to Sunday Night Football.
Yeah, man. So we have Neil is Mr. Fancy Pants. He's away at the DraftKings final this weekend, and there wasn't anybody to fill in. So you and we had met a couple days ago. We talked about the show, and I was like, hey, you know what? I'll just do it. Like, why am I trying to find somebody else to fill in? I'll do it. What do I need an off day for? I don't need off days. I work 7 days a week. I'm a young, healthy man. So here I am, gonna hang out with you. And to be honest, this is how I would like to spend my Sunday anyways, chopping up football with you.
Yeah, it's this will be kind of fun. I'm just getting ready for my my main lineup here. I'm going to enter that. I will drop some team free money. I like to drop some team free money into the DK lobby, Greg. I put in some $1 head to heads because I am the last of the big spenders. But it's kind of funny. Two slates ago, Thursday Night Football, 0 for 20. I lost to all 20 people I played. Today in cash game, I think I'm 36-0 last I checked. So we will see. That's main slate DK. But username EMac, these will pop up. And please hit that like button because that that helps team free money here. Sometimes we give to the community. Sometimes we win a little bit. More often than not, we give to the community. But we have a fun one tonight. Here we've got Jacksonville hosting the Baltimore Ravens. You've got the inactives. Nothing crazy popped up here on the inactives. For Jacksonville, they're going to be without Brenton Strange. He's their third string tight end. They're missing Chandler Brewer, who was one of their backup offensive linemen as well. They do have a couple of the left guard and the left tackle are dinged up a little bit, but they're both playing tonight. On the Baltimore side, nothing too crazy. There are a couple defensive backs that are at. Oh, I forgot Rock Ya-Sing was still with this team. Guy, he's got a great name. He's got a great name.
Sorry to cut you off here, but I like when you get into you're like nothing too important here, and then it's like backup offensive linemen are out today. Yeah, probably not going to be that important to the slate.
Well, I'm going through the inactive list, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head what positions everybody plays and how important they really are. Because I do write up the article, and I did mention that two of the left guard and left tackle were out, but I didn't recognize these names. Unlike a good friend of mine in the DFS and fantasy world, Evan Silva, I don't have every offensive and defensive lineman memorized like he does. So I have to kind of guess here.
Or Neil, because when Neil's playing Showdown, and we're going to pull the Sims up on screen. We'll build lineups in the Sims. We'll check out the lineup generator, so all the different tools at stochastic.com, and just build some lineups here while we're going through. Neil is like really intently, closely paying attention. Like, which backup tight end is out? Oh my God, this guy might play 3 snaps tonight. This is a contrarian play. Where to me, I'm often running the data for Showdown, and I get exposure to players who I've never heard of in my entire life up until that point, and I'll forget they exist 2 days from now.
Yeah, and even though I write up every single Showdown slate, so I write almost every team up 5 points 5 times during the year, I don't remember everybody either. The one I was looking for is I wanted to see if Jamal Agnew was active because he is the Pro Bowl returner that for the Jaguars. He's missed the last few games. He is active tonight. He could conceivably take some snaps on offense away from Parker Washington. So that was the name I was diligently searching for. He has missed at least 3 or 4 games. I want to say he has offensive touches, I think, at 4 different games where he was healthy. On the season, I think it's like 11 targets and 4 carries. But again, Pro Bowl return man. So if he gets in space, he can do some things. So it wouldn't shock me if the rookie struggles, if he comes in, if Zay Jones, isn't getting it done. maybe we see a couple design plays for Agnew. His injury was a shoulder, so it shouldn't really impact anything that he's going to be doing. But he was the guy I was debating if I should put in my cash game lineup here, Greg, because I've been told by Neil that I don't make very conventional cash game lineups when it comes to Showdown. And my answer is, well, I don't want to tie with everybody. Where's the fun in that? Hence the sometimes I lose the ball, sometimes I win the ball.
You're trying to lose. You're trying to win all the dollar head-to-heads. But if you don't, people could find your username and they know where to scoop up the action. So if you guys want to play EMac and DFS tonight, what's your DK handle again?
Username is EMac. I've been around since the beginning. Yeah. So I didn't have to share it.
The first DraftKings account ever was EMac. It was made in 1876. He got screwed over by the Black Sox scandal, but he's still chugging along.
Yeah, we were trying to stack there, but we were trying to get stacks of money. It was a little bit of a different world back then. But in any event, this should be a good one here. I'm debating my last two spots. So I'll just make sure I get these in. And then last thing I wanted to throw out there just real quick, Demarcus Robinson. Didn't he used to just run wind sprints? What's happened the last 3 weeks? Tutu Atwell is out. There's like something in the water for the wide receivers there in Los Angeles for the Rams.
Yeah.
Very
so I have the slate is over now. I had 2 live lineups for the early slate. And one of them had Demarcus Robinson in it. So I was rooting for him at the end there. Nothing special happened for me on the slate, but he was somebody I was rooting for at the end. But he was also like 12% owned or something. People actually rostered him at a pretty good clip.
All right. I'm going to get this one in early, Greg. I'm going to get a shout out. Just got the tweet from Sean G, from Sean Jeezy. He got fifth out of 297,000 entries in the Mega Minimax on DK for the main slate. Yeah. He brought home a cool $2,000. He has been using the Sims. He loves them. I think we could probably do an entire Hall of Fame once a month. That's just him and the mini maxes across a variety of sports. He certainly has gotten the hang of the new tools here. So we'll show some of those tonight. We are sponsored by Owner's Box. So I wanted to mention them. A couple key things there. When you put in your first deposit, if you come through the link below us in the YouTube chat, you will get up to a $500 deposit match. If you put in 5, you get 5. You put in 20, you get 20. Put in 500, you get 500. You want to put in 10. That's actually the minimum, because they're also going to give you a $10 contest ticket or $5 contest ticket that gets you into any contest, and then a $5 lightning contest ticket. So you guys definitely want to check those out. I'm going to drop the splash page, as we like to call it, where you can get all of the details here. But again, if you or anyone you know has a gambling issue, you will want to make sure you call or text 1-800-GAMBLER. And the standard age for gambling in most states is 21 or older. What other fun do we have, Greg? Well, Lamar Jackson is pretty good. We've got the Ravens on tap here. They are battling for the best record in the AFC right now. And then you have Jacksonville, who I believe they've lost 2 of their last 3, if I remember correctly. They are half of a game ahead of the Colts, who won yesterday, and that is for the AFC South, which is the automatic berth that gets you into the playoffs. So important game for both teams. And then we want to remember about 2 weeks ago on primetime, we saw Trevor Lawrence sprain his ankle in that game that went to overtime. So CJ Beathard ended up coming in at quarterback. We had Trevor Lawrence walking for hours and hours to get to the other side of the stadium literally forever, according to Greg's Twitter. And then even he said, maybe I should have asked for a cart. And I thought he was going to be out for 2 weeks minimum. Played the very next week. Definitely stepping a little gingerly. Not as nimble as which we should expect, but he's going to be out there tonight. Do you have any concerns on his injury? And then we can kind of get into breaking these things down.
Yeah, so of course there has to be some concern. We can't just assume that he's going to be 100% healthy. And by the way, also as we're talking, if you guys just see on screen, I am running a sim right now for tonight's slate, and we'll start with DraftKings, we'll do it for FanDuel, we'll do it for Owner's Box as well. And we'll just look at some of the different results as we go and stuff like which lineups are expected to be heavily duped and stuff like that. But also, like you had mentioned, our guy Sean, who I seemingly wins a tournament every other night, or at least is at the top of a tournament every other night. He's been absolutely crushing it using these tools. And if you guys want to sign up, use the link below in the description box, and everything is included in our NFL packages now. So you get the projections, the ownership projections, the contest generator, the Sims tool, so you can build everything right here on one spot. But as you mentioned with Trevor Lawrence, a couple of things. Like, I can't confidently tell you that he's going to be 100% healthy, but at the same time, too, all the risks are built into our data. It's built into the Sims as well. So we have all the different outcomes in here in terms of what happens if he doesn't finish a game. When we simulate these contests out, they get simulated 40,000 times, and it's based on information that we know going into the game. So I'm not going to be better than our data at figuring out how much it's going to impact them, but we are going to see pretty quickly here when we start looking at some of our top lineups how we're getting to Trevor Lawrence. And it could also be a situation where I think we had him projected for somewhere around 42% ownership in the flex spot, and then they're double digit in the captain spot. So it is possible also that he could go under-owned if people are concerned about the ankle. So it's kind of hard to say. It's one of those situations where I just lean on the data.
All righty. Shall we dive into the team by position portion of our breakdown, Greg?
We could do whatever you want, and I'll go around. By the way, do you see Chris Williams in the YouTube chat? The man is dropping memberships left and right.
He's back on a bit of a heater. He said I was reading some of the messages. I think it was yesterday's show. He said he was at one point he was down, but then he's back up about $10,000 again. So
it's a good deal.
Living la vida loca while you can. All righty. So this week, Lamar Jackson was our number 2 quarterback in both DraftKings and FanDuel for the full Week 15 player pool. He was behind only Jalen Hurts. Of course, that was before Hurts was downgraded to being questionable with an illness. We'll have to see what happens, but that is tomorrow's problem. This year, Jackson does have 5 rushing touchdowns, which is the most he has posted in the last 3 seasons. In the last 2 years, he had 5 combined. He is running 9.5 times per game, which is a little bit more than last year, but he's only rushing for 49.5 yards per game. Now, if you go look at his last 6 or 7, it's higher than that more often than not. So he's doing a little bit better, but he's had to take on more of the load now that Mark Andrews is out. So on the passing side, he was just not getting a lot of yardage until last week against the Rams. They allowed him 316 points and 3 touchdowns. That was his second best effort of the entire season. What we want to know about Jacksonville, Greg, is they have pretty good rushing DVOA. They're ranked 2nd, and their passing DVOA is 10th. However, even though it has that lofty total, the last 5 quarterbacks they've faced, 4 of them have posted 296 or more yards, and all but 1 had multiple touchdowns. And this is not a murderer's row. Brock Purdy, okay, he was the 296 and 3. Will Levis, he was the one guy that didn't get to 300. He had 158, but he had 2 touchdowns. CJ Stroud, 302. Jake Browning, 354 and 1. That was in the overtime game. And then last week, Joe Flacco, coming off the couch, having some fun here, 311 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he was the only quarterback of the last 5 weeks to throw an interception. I think Lamar's in a good spot tonight. The real question is, how many lineups do you make before he is no longer in the multiplier, and how many lineups do you make before he is not on them at all?
So I think that's kind of an interesting question that we could answer also by looking at some of the lineups that we have here in the Sims tool that I just built out here, which you guys might have seen me putting these up and favoriting some of them while EMac was running through some of the recent matchups and the situation here with Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence on the other side. One thing I did think that's pretty interesting here, Mac, is at least in this run here that I did, the top projected lineup by ROI actually doesn't have Trevor Lawrence in it, which kind of speaks to before. You said, how confident can we be in him being totally healthy? And at least the top ROI projected lineup in this run didn't have him in. As for Lamar Jackson, he is in almost all of our top lineups here. I think actually all but one lineup here that we have on screen of our top lineups has Lamar Jackson in it. So he's obviously a very high priority. If you guys are only playing one lineup today, I would suggest having Lamar Jackson in it. As for the other part of your question, though, EMac, I don't think it has to be him at the captain spot. Like, I think he's somebody who we really want to prioritize getting into lineups. It doesn't have to be in the multiplier, though.
All right, let's talk a little bit about the running backs. We already covered one, chuckle, because it is definitely Lamar Jackson. We have, I don't even want to say it's a three-headed backfield or a three-headed monster. We have a disaster at running back here. So Gus Edwards has just 10 targets on the season. In the last two games, he has 14 total carries for 41 yards. He was getting by on finding the end zone once or twice a game during the middle of the season. That has not really happened. His price is not a friendly price on either site. You have rookie Keaton Mitchell. He is arguably the best of the options, but remember, I think he was a four-year starter of East Carolina, if I'm remembering the correct rookie. In any event, he piled up a bunch of yards in college, but he went to an FBS school, but he was not drafted. But he looks okay out there. But I don't know how much they, trust him, because sometimes John Harbaugh can be a little persnickety. Not as much as his brother Jim, but he can definitely have his favorites. And then you have Justice Hill. It's a pretty good blocker, really good pass blocker. He's an okay rusher, but we have no idea what's going to happen with his workload. Last week he was on the field for for 20 snaps. And he got 5 carries. This was 2 weeks ago. Last week, he was on the field for 30 snaps, and he had 2 targets. So we have no idea what's going to happen with him, even when he's on the field. And then Patrick Ricard masquerading as a running back, the 300-pound fullback. He has just 4 targets this season, no carries. So we can kind of set Patrick Ricard aside. It's hard to even count on the lucky target for 6 yards to him, and he's not a red zone threat. Congratulations on your touchdown today, Patrick Ricard, because that's how these things happen. But Gus Edwards, I'm not excited about. Keaton Mitchell, I'm intrigued by, but the workload could go right away, and we've seen rookies just get banished in big games when they make a mistake. And I like Justice Hill the most, probably for the price, but he's priced like he is because his workload is mercurial, to say the least. Do you have anything you want to add to this other than it's a giant grab bag, and I don't think there's any good outcomes here?
So I like Keaton Mitchell the most, and it's also something, if you guys have been looking on screen here, I've been kind of filtering by the different running backs while EMac was talking, and I was trying to change the screen as you were talking about individual players, EMac. So we're looking at the different exposures we got to the different running backs here. And Gus Edwards didn't show up in any of our top 150 lineups. He was in none of them. I think that's mostly due to price point concerns. And then Justice Hill, he was only in one of our top 150 lineups, and that's probably because of workload concerns. And then Keaton Mitchell is kind of the sweet spot, right? Because he's a guy who's not crazy priced. He's the guy who has the most upside in the backfield, and he's also not all that popular either. We've got Keaton Mitchell here projected for 25.5% ownership in the flex spot, 4% in the captain spot. And we're getting overweight to both of those numbers. So Keaton Mitchell, I agree with you. I don't know exactly who's going to be the guy on any given day for the Ravens, but I think we could both agree on this, EMac. If all 3 of these guys were to have their best game, Keaton Mitchell's the one who has the highest ceiling and would have the best outcome if all of these guys had their best night.
I think that is a phenomenal way to frame that, Greg. He just has the best opportunity for yardage because he'll get it rushing and receiving. Whereas the Gus bus, he's going to get what? Somewhere between 40 and 60 yards and about a third of a touchdown. That's tough because he's carrying that lofty salary. So I like the way that you're thinking on that one. Looking at the wide receivers, here we have rookie Zay Flowers. He has 18 targets in the last 2 games. Those were both without Andrews for the full game. Remember, Andrews got hurt relatively early in the game 3 weeks ago, but he turned these 18 targets into 11 receptions, 85 yards, 2 receiving touchdowns, and then he had a 37-yard carry for another touchdown. Those touchdowns are really helping out his fantasy production, but he does lead the team in targets. Odell Beckham Jr. Continuing to be further and further removed from his knee surgery and recovery. He's looked pretty good. 10 targets last week, caught 4 of them, 97 yards and a touchdown. He's scored in 3 of the last 5 games. And in one of those 2 games where he did not score, he had his only 100-yard game of the season. So he's coming on strong right now. This is causing a little bit of issues there with Rashad Bateman and Nelson Aguilar. They've sort of been splitting, air quote, splitting not really, but the taking targets, they're splitting that third in the pecking order. They're still behind Isaiah Likely as well, but Beckham is kind of consolidating some of the work there. The only Bateman had 5 and 4 targets. Aguilar had 2 and 5 each of their last 2 weeks. So that's they're in the mix on DK for your flex spot. Devin Duvernay had 2 targets in week 9. Otherwise, it's only been Bateman, Aguilar, Beckman, and Flowers to have targets. Since that, Duvernay is on the injured reserve. Now that has opened things up for Tylan Wallace, who is likely to be the kick returner. He has been on the field for just 10 offensive plays over the last 3 games. He has been rather disappointing, but we want to remember he was a 4th rounder out of Oklahoma State, and he has just 13 targets, 6 receptions, 56 yards. But he is an extreme discount. He's kind of the Devin Duvernay without Duvernay, but he'll probably have less of an on-field presence than Duvernay did 2 and 3 years ago. Duvernay was kind of relegated to just special teams this year because they've helped. They're helped with Flowers and Beckham, et cetera. So it's not James Prochet and Duvernay like are fighting as the 2.5 these days. So the core 4 would be Flowers, Beckham, Bateman, and Aguilar. But then we have to think about Isaiah Likely as well. So he has stepped in for Mark Andrews. This is his 2nd year. We saw him perform. He had a monster game in week 18 last year. Otherwise, he's been okay. But since taking things over when Andrews went down early in week 11, we just saw Isaiah Likely get 2 targets. Then the next game, he had 6 targets. Last week, he had a season-high 7 targets. He is probably the best priced player in the player pool on both sides if we give him about a 50-50 shot of a touchdown. So I don't know that I like him as the multiplier, but I think he's a very good core flex play. And that's last week we saw David Njoku rip up this team for 2 touchdowns. If Likely does half the production that Njoku had, whatever it was, like 11 targets, 8 catches, and 90 yards, I think is something around that range, and 2 touchdowns, Isaiah Likely is going to have a good game. This is the Eric Lindquist call out here. Charlie Kohler, the tight end from, you guessed it, Greg, Iowa State. He's a Cyclone.
Okay. I was going to guess it's because he's a white player.
He went to Iowa State, right? Isn't that one?
And he's a tight end. So I mean, I don't know who this guy is, but I mean, I'm putting 2 and 2 together.
We're looking at the diversity, and we know exactly where it's coming with this guy. It's not. So I was like, what the heck is up with this guy? Why has he not really done a whole lot? He was, I want to say, it was like a 4th or 5th rounder last year. He hasn't played a ton. So I went to look up his college. He was he played 4 years, was a 3-year starter. His last 3 years, he averaged 52 receptions, 680 yards, and he scored 20 total touchdowns in those 3 games. That's a pretty good, those are good numbers for tight ends. He's not just a blocking tight end, right? By any stretch of the imagination. He is at the absolute minimum on DK. I want to make sure I have him in a couple of my lineups just because this feels like the coming out party for him to appear for us. We shall see. But if you're dancing down there at the absolute minimums, it's between him and Jamal Agnew on DraftKings.
Yeah, and just now I was kind of scrolling through because I wanted to see if we actually had any lineups that had Charlie Kolar in them. And yeah, clearly not anybody who's any kind of priority play here, EMac, but to get him into a few lineups here. So if you guys are playing one lineup, I wouldn't say go play Charlie Kolar, but if you're playing, 20 lineups, I think he's probably worth having in one lineup. And if you're playing max entry, I do think he's somebody who's worth some exposure to. We only have him projected for 1% ownership, and he did show up in about 3% of the lineups that I built out here in terms of the ones that rated out best by simulated ROI. So there are worse punt plays that you could take a chance on for Showdown, and these are often the guys who end up differentiating lineups, players who are 1-2% owned that might get a few snaps, and all it takes from one of these guys is to catch 1 or 2 passes, and that ultimately could be like, hey, if Lamar Jackson goes off, if Trevor Lawrence goes off, if Keaton Mitchell, like you just get like a bunch of the skill position players and the quarterbacks that have big games, you're going to need one of those punt guys. And Kolar is somebody who does wind up in the player pool here.
Yeah. And so he has 1 target He happened to get it in the game where Mark Andrews got hurt. And then he had one target in the first game of the year when Andrews was out. I think Andrews missed the first game. I think he and Kelsey both missed those first games. I know Kelsey for sure, but I think Andrews might have missed the first or maybe even the second game as well. But long shots. But I was expecting to see, he's like Drew Sample, right? Drew Sample is the Huskies tight end. He was mostly a blocker. He played in his time with the Huskies, he played with 4 other tight ends that ended up in the pros. None of them were great, but I was looking this up. But he was with Jake Browning. But he's mostly the blocking tight end. I thought that was just kind of funny that they're both now on Cincinnati Bengals. But that is someone you don't expect much from. This guy, maybe, just maybe, we get a Stone Smart type performance or something, couple catches, 30 yards. That's all we're looking at. But defenses, did you know the Ravens are like pretty much the best defense in the league when it comes to a fantasy perspective, Greg? 49 sacks. That's a league leading number. Jacksonville has allowed 6 sacks in the last 2 games. Remember, we got that ankle sprain issue there for Lawrence and a couple banged up offensive linemen. On the turnover side, each team is averaging about 1.3, 1.5 turnovers and takeaways for the Ravens. Despite those 49 sacks, they don't have that many turnovers. Anything you want to highlight that we missed for the Ravens? We'll talk about the kickers when we get to the very end because I got notes on them too.
Yeah, so you kind of went through everybody there, and the one guy who I thought was kind of interesting to talk about as a contrarian option was Charlie Kolar. You talked about him, and if we look at the defenses, I'm kind of interested to see that we're getting to a decent amount of the Jacksonville Jaguars defense here, running lineups through the Sims for DK. And for people who are asking about FanDuel, I'll pull up FanDuel in a second here as well. But the Jaguars defense, and this is mostly going to be because of price point, they actually are showing up in 20% of lineups. Typically, I don't love playing defenses going up against Lamar Jackson. The reason being, EMac, because how do defenses score points? Sacks, interceptions, turnovers. When it's hard to do that? When a team runs the ball a lot. And Lamar Jackson's not a quarterback we're typically expecting to throw the ball 30 to 40 times. He's going to be running the ball a whole bunch. So I do think that really does limit the upside of the Jacksonville Jaguars defense. So that is one thing I might disagree with our data a little bit here in terms of the amount that we're getting to Jacksonville. And then on the flip side, the Ravens defense is fairly expensive for this slate. They're not expected for much ownership. And I was actually looking at them in the captain spot. Do we have more of them in here, we do have more of them in the flex. We're actually into a lot of the Ravens in the flex, 38%. For me personally, if these were lineups that I was playing, I would mute both these defenses. I wouldn't play 38% and 20% of the defenses.
Did you say mute or nuke?
Mute. So I would do like an ROI boost down. I would downgrade.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mute my exposure to them.
Okay. I was just checking. All righty. Let's move on to, so we talked about Trevor Lawrence a little bit, going against the number 2 passing DVOA. Lawrence is in his 3rd season. He got to the playoffs last year, which was very exciting. Did you know that Baltimore has yet to allow a 300-yard passer, Greg? That has not happened this year. Last week, they allowed the most yards of the season. That was 294 yards. That was to Matthew Stafford. That was in overtime. We want to remember Lawrence is without Christian Kirk, and then Ezra Cleveland and Walker Little were the 2 guys who were banged up. So it's hard to trust him, but he's one of 2 quarterbacks. If he was fully healthy, he would probably be my 3rd favorite play on the slate. He's about my 7th favorite play on the slate, just because of this particular matchup. And favorite is everybody is about 5. It's Lawrence and it's Etienne. They're about 4 or 5 points behind Lamar Jackson in the full PPR scoring format, and Etienne falls even 2 more points behind in the half PPR. So they're your top 3 guys. Etienne, kind of interesting. He's got that bell cow role, right? And last year we were worried because he didn't seem to be as involved in the passing game as we would have liked. That has not been an issue. He sees 4 to 6 targets quite regularly. Dearness Johnson plays when Etienne is not on the field, so he's going to be there for about 20 to 30% of the snaps. He'll probably get a half a dozen touches. They will not be high leverage. Etienne will be close to 20 opportunities 16 to 20 touches, depending on what he does with his targets. Tank Bigsby, the rookie, he is out of the picture. He has played just 6 offensive snaps in the last 3 games, Greg. For those of us doing the, what do we call that, the 0 RB in best ball, he is the 0 RB. He's getting you zeros nonstop.
This is the first year I really played very heavy best ball, EMac. And the best part is, like, the drafts are fun. People go crazy tracking their teams over the course of the year. I didn't really do that all that much. I have to say, the amount of thinking that people do about the best ways to build your lineups, I had like a pretty good advancement rate. And I realized that it's just, do you have players healthy or not this time of year? And nothing else matters. Yeah. There is no strategy that matters. Just, can you fill a healthy team or not? I have one team that looks like it's going to advance with no quarterbacks making it through the first round. It's just get healthy players. I don't know what the strategy is for that, but that's the only thing that matters. 0 running back, a million running backs. I don't care. Just get guys that can field an entire healthy team by the last week of this.
I have a 4 quarterback team or 4 tight end team that doesn't have any healthy tight ends. How is that mathematically possible?
Is that on DraftKings or
DraftKings.
Underdog? Okay.
I did DraftKings and Drafters were the 2 I played.
Gotcha.
But such is life. So that gets us through the running backs there. So I would say Dearness Johnson is above Justice Hill. From a price perspective, he's probably above Gus Edwards as well. I prefer Keaton Mitchell, Keaton Mitchell, and then Travis Etienne if we're kind of ranking. And then Dearness Johnson, if we're kind of ranking them. The running backs. Mm-hmm. Wide receiver, Christian Kirk, of course, is out. He had, I forget what he injured, but he has surgery, and there's a decent chance he's going to be able to. Oh, is that what it was? Did he have a testicle?
It was groin, but it was. Oh, it looked in real time.
It was one of those torsions. Yeah. It was. I thought they. Anyway, sorry. He's had surgery. He is rehabbing. They think there's a good chance he rejoins them in week 17 or 18.
Yeah, I didn't read too much about what the actual injury was, but in real time, I thought it was his balls, and then they said a groin injury, but that could really go either way. So I didn't know if it was actually like, hey, is this a testicular torsion thing? It's very obvious in baseball, because if you see Adrian Beltre get hit in the nuts with a line drive, you could feel pretty confident that it was a testicle injury. But football, they could just go out and they could tell you that it was. By the way, I just put some of the top FanDuel lineups on screen. I saw people were asking for that in the YouTube chat. So ran a sim for FanDuel as well and got some of that up. We'll be sorting through some of the players here. But yeah, it was either pulled groin muscle or testicle exploded. One of the 2.
I always remember Paul Moyer, not to be confused with Jamie Moyer, but Paul Moyer was a defensive back for the Seattle Seahawks. He played an entire half with an honest-to-God ruptured testicle. So we used to joke, what are the 20 greatest plays in Seahawk history? And my friends would always say, the 20 that Moyer played with a ruptured testicle.
Well, that is very funny, but also football culture.
Neither here nor there, but come on. If we can talk about balls, we have to.
Football culture is ridiculous. The fact where it's like, hey, your nuts exploded, cool, play through it. Like, this is what men do. I don't know about that. My balls explode. I'm probably not playing football the rest of the day.
It does seem like a bit much there. But back to the wide receivers here, because this is where it's kind of fun. So Kirk is out, obviously. Calvin Ridley's barely left the field since Kirk was injured. He leads the team already with 97 targets, but he's going to be blanketed by the defense. Last week, Zay Jones had 14 targets. But he had just, 5 catches for 29 yards. That's no bueno. But if he gets that kind of volume and catches half of them, that's going to be a pretty good score. Parker Washington kind of stepped up for Kirk. But the main thing that is hurting him is lack of targets. He had last week, he just had 3, caught 2 for 27 yards, but he got a touchdown. So he scored in the 2 games where he had the opportunities to be on the field. And then, as I mentioned, Jamal Agnew is active tonight. So he potentially could be working in. We'll have to see. Even when everybody was healthy, he didn't always see the field on offense. But he's one of those guys that if he gets out there, he's he'll get 2 or 3 design plays for him, right? So there's not for nothing, but he's $200. And then Evan Ingram, he's kind of the co-wide receiver one. So even though he's a tight end, obviously we know from his New York days, he is just going to be a target monster. He leads the team with targets in his last 2 games, 21 targets, 20 catches, 177 yards, and 3 touchdowns. Those are his only touchdowns on the season, Greg. Those are some pretty damn good numbers. He warrants multiplier consideration. And then the backup is Luke Farrell. He's on the field for about 40% of the games. He has just 1 target in the last 2 games, but 3 weeks ago he had 5. I want to say he has around a dozen on the year. And then Brenton Strange, he is out with the foot issue. So Luke Farrell, I want to say he's 1,200 on DK, 8,000 on FanDuel. A punt, but you got to get up to about 50 lineups, I think, before you get to him. Do we have Luke Farrell popping up in our Sims there?
Let's see. Are you asking now for FanDuel or
either site is fine?
Okay.
He's 8,000 on FanDuel. Be a little tough.
I don't remember him being, because I'd scrolled through our top DK lineups. I don't remember him being in any of them. He is in 1.3%. So 2 out of our top 150 FanDuel lineups did in fact have Luke Farrell in them. By the way, I don't know if you saw it, but we have a handful of super chats, EMac.
Oh, I have not. My computer's running a little sluggish, so I don't.
It's cool. I'll read them off. Don't pull up another chat, or else you're going to disappear, and then you won't hear it.
You already know what happened before, Greg. I'm trying to minimize what I'm doing.
Before the show started, EMac had no video or audio. It was quite the scene before we started. But first, I'd mentioned this at the top of the show, but Chris Williams, our Apple friend, he did gift out a handful of YouTube memberships. So Chris, thank you very much for supporting the channel. And anybody else who wants to support the channel, the easiest way to do it is just to simply like the video and subscribe to the YouTube channel. We do appreciate it. And then Malcolm Revamp wants to know, what way are we going? 3-3, 4-2, or 5-1? He's asking DK and FanDuel. So we do have some FanDuel lineups up here on screen right now. I will say a lot of the DK lineups I was looking at were either 3-3 or 4-2 in favor of the Ravens. So I am going to say probably 3-3 for DK. If we look at some of our top FanDuel lineups here, we've got, let's see, our number 1 overall projected lineup. We have 2 lineups here with a simulated ROI north of 200. One of them is Evan Ingram in the MVP spot with Justin Tucker, Zay Jones, Lamar Jackson, and Trevor Lawrence. And then our second best projected lineup by Sim ROI has Lamar Jackson, also Justin Tucker, Evan Ingram, Rashad Bateman, and Trevor Lawrence. So it looks like we're pretty evenly balanced across the 2 teams on the 2 sites, like 3-3 over on DK. That was what I was seeing most commonly. And on FanDuel also, 3-2 lineup. So it's not like this is one team that we're expecting, like crush the other team or anything like that. I think you go pretty balanced in terms of how you're going to be splitting up your exposures by teams there. Malcolm Revamp. And now we've got another super chat, EMac. This one is from Nathan Perkins, who's asking Travis Etienne or Trevor Lawrence in the flex for a 4-2 Baltimore stack. I go with Trevor Lawrence over Etienne personally. I think he's somebody who warrants a little bit more exposure, but do you feel differently about that, EMac?
I made the decision to go with ETN in my cash game lineup over Lawrence. I have enough to go either way. So that is kind of my lean. He said he was looking for the combination. It sounds like he's looking for. I think you are correct that it would be Lawrence, but it's one of those 55-45s. And I wouldn't want to, hang my head on the margin there. That's why he's asking the question, I'm sure. But I would say Lawrence is probably the correct answer.
Yeah, and then we've got another super chat here from Curtis James, and this not a question. This one is just an observation. He is apparently in a best ball pod with me, and he says that he needs 21 or more points from ETN to beat me in one of the best ball millies. So I guess this is a pod where I'm in first place right now, and Curtis, you're probably in second or third, and good luck, but I hope I win.
It's fair. It's fair.
Do you have any other outs? Do I have other outs? I'd have to go through and look.
I advanced 12 of 107, basically evenly split between first and second, and I had 13 thirds. So I guess that was okay, not great, but on the cusp. Mistakes were made, Greg. Mistakes.
Yeah. I'm just scrolling through some of mine right now. Oh, this is annoying. I had one team, just scrolling through a couple of them really quick. It is 1 point out of first in this pod, and the quarterback was Sam Howell, who got benched in the second half of that game. So yeah, we'll see what ends up happening with some of these best ball pods. But good luck, Curtis James. If I don't win the $1 million, I hope you do.
$1 million. That'd be fun to win that.
What
would be the first thing?
You win a contest for $1 million right now. What are you doing with it?
Just throwing it in Adam's face.
Nice. So similar. I mean, I would use the money to
I think you go to Lindquist, I'm sure. Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. I'm spending all the money to hire a hitman to go take out Eric. But we got similar things.
Yeah, no, it's always funny because Adam, I always tell him about the crowns and the milestones and all of that. He just shakes his head, and I'm like, dude. By the way, this year I should if I don't do anything stupid between now and the end of the year, I'll get about $20,000 in cash and prizes as my profit this year. Had a very similar number last year. This is not a bad way to go for a hobby, guys, right?
No, and I mean the other thing too is like if you are, because I've looked at, if you go to your account on DK, you look at the breakdown of what they give you in prizes, and like when they send out free stuff for rewards and whatnot. It did work out to be something like, I don't know, $15,000 for last year for being Onyx in 2023, just in terms of prizes that they gave you and whatnot. So yeah, if you could, before how EMac used to do it, where EMac was a hardcore grinder, where you were probably the reason they changed the reward system, where not you in particular, but people were doing the same.
There was a secret club of us that figured this one out.
Where
we're all very sad.
Finding ways to optimize the amount of crowns you got to get you Onyx tier, where it's supposed to be geared towards people who are playing more volume, but you found like, hey, I found other ways that I could do this. And you could have been somebody who was a low stakes player that found an edge grinding out crowns, and you found a way to make yourself like an extra like $15,000 a year just in bonus rewards from DK.
Yeah, so that was good. That gravy train is over now. I have one more year at the second highest level, and then I won't ever qualify again. But that's okay because I'm still playing on sites like Owner's Box, where you get the deposit bonuses. Some of our other pick'em sites that sponsor our shows, getting every deposit bonus I can. That's the key to grinding through this stuff. Because even like a 4% drip on Owner's Box, you'll work your way through it in half of a season, even if you're only playing one sport. And that reduced rake plus them having overlay. That's just it's. People say it's free money. You still have to monetize it, so don't lose sight of that. But it's a huge difference. It's like using Odd Shopper, right? It's just staying on those margins. And if you play enough, you grind enough. Like for those of you, I never got into poker, but I would have been the rake back. I don't want to say any of the words I was going to use, but I would have been very enthusiastic about rake back, and I would have grinded the hell out of that. But that's basically what you can do. You never redeposit. That's the beautiful thing. I don't ever have to redeposit. I get a withdrawal. Thank you, Stochastic Tools. Oh, Matt Gajeski, by the way. Promo code BOWL will get you half off, not just the college football projections through the national championship game, but also the college basketball projections. Those college basketball projections are gold. I will tell you that, especially if you're playing in the low stakes stuff, you can utilize those. You're making $40-$50 every other day. You end up about $150-$200 a week. That adds up over the course of a season. This is how you lather, rinse, repeat, and make this money. It's not in one fell swoop.
By the way, Jordan Klein's in the chat right now. He must know he could sense what I'm doing from a production angle here, navigating the sims and doing different filters. So he's just showing up to make it known that he's still around. He doesn't want us to think that I'm taking his job here by trying to get some of this different stuff on screen. But we do have a couple of questions that are in the Discord channel for us, EMac. The first one here is from Einsteinium, who's asking us, who do you prefer at captain between Zay Jones and Evan Ingram? So that's why I went back to the DK lineups I built and filtered just by the captain positions. And the player that we're liking the most overall in the Sims at the captain is Evan Ingram. He's only projected for 10% ownership as a captain. He's actually showing up in a third of our lineup. So a little bit of a contrarian option at captain. Not like he's a 1 or 2% owned guy or anything, but he is going to be lower owned than Lamar Jackson or lower owned than ETN. Those guys are 15 and 17.5% owned. We've got Calvin Ridley projected for 11.6% ownership in the captain spot. So Evan Ingram at 10% is the one we're getting to the most here. So Einsteinium, I'm going to go with Evan Ingram over Zay Jones for the captain. And then Gang Green wants to know what I think about Isaiah Likely as a captain. And if you're going to look to punt at the position, or not necessarily punt because Likely isn't a punt, but if you're looking for more of a value option at the position, Likely's making into some of these lineups. Not the guy that I'd be playing in a single entry or anything, but I don't mind getting exposure to him in the captain.
Fair enough. I am now using the lineup simulator myself, Greg. I'm following your path tonight. This worked pretty well for me, even though I got my ass kicked on my head-to-heads. I ended up almost 2xing my money thanks to the lineup simulator on Thursday Night Football. So, and there's another 10 more team free money head-to-heads out there in the DK lobby. Those of you that don't like taking me on or don't like my content, take me on, take my money. Team free money, username EMac. Just $1, last of the big spenders in the DK lobby. So when you're using this, when you do the first step for the lineup simulator and you boost ownership, is that increasing the amount of ownership of the pool of players, or is that increasing what you will get?
So that is increasing the pool of the player. So it's like the equivalent of increasing a player's projected ownership. So if somebody was looking at the lineups that they had in here and they decided, actually, here's something we can do. Somebody in chat, say a player that you want us to be getting to more of, a player who maybe isn't all that popular that you'd like us to get a lot of. People in chat just throw some names out. And then what we'll do in here is we could do an ROI boost and we could see how that changes the exposure that we get to that player. So here we've got our top 150 lineups selected, but this is with no kind of boosts or anything like that. And then if somebody was to say like, hey, I want to get to more of, Isaiah Likely, maybe somebody in chat, or we got Mike Lawrence answered right there. Odell Beckham Jr., he answered first. So right now we have 18.7% of Odell Beckham in our top 150 lineups, EMac. If I wanted to get to more of Odell Beckham, I wouldn't change it in the contest generator side. I would change it in the simulation side, and I'd go to Beckham. So I type in Beckham, and then I would look at him, and we could do it for both the captain and the flex. I'll give him like a 10% boost in the captain spot, and then 30% ROI boost in the flex spot. And then if I boost his ROI, but then go back to our lineups and unfavorite them and then refavorite the top 150 here, you'll see that our exposure to Odell Beckham is going to be a little bit changed now. So before, where we had Odell Beckham in 18% of lineups and only a couple lineups in the captain spot, we didn't get to much more captain ownership of him, but still 4% and 32%. So we got to like 60% more Odell Beckham than we had before, just by doing a little bit of an ROI boost. So if you guys are using the tools, that's the best way to increase your exposure to a player who maybe you want more, or if you want less of. Like, so for me, I was looking at this before and I felt we were getting too much of the defenses, more than I would feel comfortable with. So I might go and do an ROI boost and downgrade the Ravens and the Jaguars defenses.
Okay, so you handle it all with the ROI boosts.
Yeah.
Okay. And that was something that took me a little while to figure out. I thought, since I have you handy, and I know that's the question a lot of people ask me as well, we can get it straight from Greg. And Greg has also done several evergreen videos that walk you through how to do this. And we also have a couple shows during the week that also give you additional help on how to utilize the simulator to get your lineups and massage that player pool. It's a little different than like an optimizer in that it's not intuitive at first, but it gets to be, because you watch Greg and Eric and Laffy and all those guys just zipping right through it. Heck, even Jordan and producer Jacob and Mike, they zip right through it as well. So it's a lot of fun.
But a shout out to Trippier in the chat, who's saying that he won $2,000 on FanDuel in those $5 single entry. And then he said, "Thanks, guys." So Trippy, love to see it. Love to see it. Nice hit.
So
nice
when
hit.
you go, if you've favorited your lineups and you want to see the exposure, That's where you go to the exposures tab on the final page, correct?
Correct. So the exposures over here, and this is going to show you what you have to each player, what the projected ownership is in the pool, and then the leverage is going to be the difference between the two. You do the ROI boost to either upgrade or downgrade players. If you do that, though, EMac, you do have to unfavor your top 150 and then reselect, the reconfigured top 150. But yeah, that's where you're going to get out of the exposures tab. Then you could also look at, so like before somebody's asking us about Isaiah Likely. So here's something that we could do. We could go lineups and we could filter by likely. If I spelled his name right anyway, we could do it. I'll just put in like there. And you can see just our individual top Isaiah Likely lineup. So if you were playing one lineup and you're like, hey, I built all these lineups, but I just want to play one and it has to have Isaiah Likely in it, well, then you could filter by Isaiah Likely and you could find just the top Isaiah Likely lineups. And then I'll scroll down and find our top Isaiah Likely lineup with him in the captain spot on DK. And that is Isaiah Likely, Evan Ingram, Lamar Jackson, Luke Farrell. You asked about him before, so he is also in this lineup. Odell Beckham Jr., Trevor Lawrence. Unsurprisingly, Mac, this is not a lineup that's expected to be duped tonight.
The other thing that's really helpful is we have filters set up across a lot of these columns and stuff, and they're variable filters, meaning you can just type in parts of their names, etc., and find players rather quickly. So this is interesting. So exposures. There we go. I boosted Charlie Kohler myself. I wanted to get more than 3%. I think I'm only going to get 3% of him. That's just what it's going to look like here. I didn't. What do you normally boost somebody by if you want to get them? Do you go like 10 or 20, or is just 5% enough to do that?
So it's going to depend slate by slate. On something like Showdown, if you just give somebody, a 20, 25% ROI boost, there's a pretty good chance you're going to like double your exposure to them. On a main slate, though, where there's a ton of options, it might not really make a massive difference if you gave somebody like a 20% boost. That might only change their ownership in your lineups by, a few percentage points. So I would just say that do a trial and error. Like there's not one size fits all answer. And then also if you really want to force yourself to a player who we are not projecting well and all the lineups they're in are shitty, you're going to have to do more of an aggressive ROI boost for those lineups to show up towards the top.
So it's kind of like a little bit of a guardrail saying, no, this is really a bad play. I don't care if you think Charlie Kohler is catching 2 for 20. You don't want him in your lineups kind of thing, right?
So I'm going to reset the ROI boost that we had on Beckham before. So I just cleared it. Let's go to Kohler, who we had in 2% of lineups right now. I want to see if I give him a 100% ROI boost, how many lineups is he going to show up in now? Just for science, EMac.
Good, because that's what I'm trying to do. I want him in like 5.
All right, so I gave him a very aggressive ROI boost, and that got him into 7.5% of lineups. So there aren't that many lineups that are going to project all that well with Charlie Kohler in them. Part of it too is he's projected for so little ownership that only so many of the lineups built are even going to have him in it. So like there's no amount you could boost him to make him show up in like more lineups that have been built.
But we could filter the pool and unfavored a couple that don't have him and favored a couple that do. That would be another way to manipulate this quickly. And
we've got a super chat from Sean Jeezy. So our guy Sean, who knows how to win tournaments. It's this guy. All he does is win tournaments. Left us a super chat. Said, "I know you guys saw the tweet. I heard the shout out at the beginning of the show. Just wanted to say thanks. You guys are the best. Good luck tonight." And telling us good luck. I mean, that's got to be like the golden blessing. Sean telling us good luck. Everything he touches turns to gold. So Sean, love to see your success. And if anybody else wants to use the tools that Sean's been using, like the ones I have on screen here, you can sign up using the link that we have below. And yeah, Sean is the hottest player out there in the mini max tournaments.
All right. If I don't get more Charlie Kohler with this ROI boost, I'm exporting my lineups. I give up. I will hand build one by hand just to make sure I get them. All righty. So, we didn't talk about kickers. So real quick, Justin Tucker, arguably the best kicker in the history of the game. I was doing a little bit of research on him. He has not been as good from distance as he was the last 3 years ago and 4 years ago. That was a little bit surprising for me. It's not going to change how I feel about him tonight, but he has missed 4 of 5. So he's only 1 for 5 from beyond 50 this year. However, he's only missed one other kick. And I think that was a 47-yarder or 43-yarder. I can't remember which side of 45 it was on. But that was sort of surprising to me. Brandon McManus having a pretty solid year, considering this is his 10th year in the league, the first one outside of Denver. So he is 5 of 7 from beyond 50, but I still trust Justin Tucker a little bit more, even though he is on the road.
Yeah, so Justin Tucker is showing up in a whole bunch of our lineups here. And Malcolm Revamp also asked, who for flex on DK and FanDuel Cash? I think Justin Tucker is one of the better cheap options we could get to save salary with. And if you look at the lineups we're getting to, I mean, we're getting to 36% of Justin Tucker when he's projected for 22% ownership. Malcolm Revamp, I know you're asking about cash, but still, I think Justin Tucker is somebody you should be considering for that. I would get both the quarterbacks in there as well for both DraftKings and FanDuel Cash. I think you want Trevor Lawrence, and then I think you also want Lamar Jackson. As far as some of the other players, I'd look at just who's expected to be popular, and then what are we doing with them relative to their ownership here. So Lamar Jackson and Trevor Lawrence, I think both of these are players you should be playing in cash games. ETN is also popular, but realistically, we're only going to be able to play so many of the expensive guys in cash games. I'm going to prioritize the quarterbacks over ETN. And then if you're looking on the cheaper end, I do think that Evan Ingram in like the upper mid-range for a skill position player is the guy you want to be playing there. We're getting to a whole bunch of exposure to him as well. So the quarterbacks, favorite overall pass catching option for cash games, Evan Ingram. And then if you're looking to save money, I think that Justin Tucker is the way to go.
All right. I have got my 5 Charlie Kohler lineups out of my 100.
There you go.
So
I will look up our best Charlie Kohler lineup in here.
I have an awful lot of Zay Jones, but he's good price.
The number 1 Charlie Kohler lineup that we have here, it is Lamar Jackson in the captain spot with Charlie Kohler, Evan Ingram, the Ravens defense, ETN, and Zay Flowers. So that is the number one Charlie Kohler lineup in this run of Sims I did.
This is Charlie Kohler is definitely a Neil's nobody.
He's a nobody's nobody.
There is that as well. There is that. If we keep talking about Zippy, is he going to show up?
I think I saw him in the YouTube chat earlier.
He's always lurking. So this is what you guys should forget. We watch our contents. I mean, obviously Adam doesn't because he has his nose in the middle of his simulation tools. But the rest of us, we like to goof around here, have some fun. It is a fun little community here.
Yeah, and Eric, if you talk about him, he shows up. He always knows.
All righty. I have now uploaded my lineups, Greg. We shall see what happens tonight, huh?
That we shall. So I'm going to build some lineups too really quick in the lineup generator. And since we're just looking at DraftKings lineups, I'll build lineups in the lineup generator for FanDuel, and we'll throw these up on screen. So if anybody's looking to build lineups last second, I'll get some of those in here as well. And if you guys haven't done it yet, also do us a favor by liking the video and subscribing to the YouTube channel. The lineup generator, it is the most beginner-friendly tool that we have at Stokastic.com. It uses data from our simulations also, but what's different about the lineup generator is, it's not as customizable, but it's just going to give you lineups, and it's also the most affordable tool that we have at Stokastic. So let's look at FanDuel for tonight, EMac. What do you want to do? Should we do some chalky lineups, balanced, or contrarian?
Oh, let's do contrarian. I want to see how wonky it needs to get to be considered contrarian.
Okay.
And the other thing that is pretty wild when we utilize the lineup generator, now that we have the Sims tool, what used to be the conventional thinking on what contrarian meant, it's really demonstrated here that it's the combination of the players and not as much as donking off 1 or 2 spots with the not so stellar play. And I don't think we can reinforce that enough. So sorry.
You could play individual popular players and still have a lineup that is going to be contrarian. So if you look at here, even though we're building contrarian lineups here in the lineup generator, we still got to, of the 20 lineups built, 100% of Lamar Jackson. He's still in all of them. And you guys see lineup one that we built here, Lamar Jackson in the MVP spot, Evan Ingram, Isaiah Likely, Rashad Bateman in the Ravens defense. But what can make some of these lineups different, like you said, it's going to be either stuff like leaving salary on the table. It could also be the combinations of players. So the ownership in itself isn't going to be the only thing that dictates whether a lineup is contrarian or not. There are other ways to make unique lineups.
Surprisingly, I only have Jackson in 72% of my lineups. Thought it would be a little bit higher. Evan Ingram is my captain. That is courtesy of the Sims.
Captain, my captain. And if we look at some of the other players that we got to here in the lineup generator, so it's pretty clear that Lamar Jackson is showing up in the lineup generator as the best overall player to roster here on FanDuel. And then if we look at some of the players who are around him, the Ravens defense, Calvin Ridley, Keaton Mitchell. So one thing that it looks like if we have a lot of Lamar Jackson here, probably this is going to be a little bit underweight to Trevor Lawrence at 35% on FanDuel. And yeah, nothing else that sticks out too much.
All right, we are 2 minutes away from lock here. You guys got to see a fun little walkthrough here of the stochastic Sims. We don't have any deals with that at this time, but if you sign up through some of the other sites where we have affiliations with, such as Owner's Box, where you're getting that $500 deposit bonus, you can start to win money and then just buy the Sims yourself. You want to try things out, go with the lineup generator, $14.95 per week there for NFL. You do get the two FanDuel and DraftKings main slates. We also have the Saturday slate, of course, and then you get the primetime games as well. We have Saturday slates counting this one, 4 of our next 5. The only week we don't have a Saturday slate is week 18 when everybody plays on Sunday. There will still be a Sunday night football for that week as well, but everybody does play on Sunday. And then don't forget, we've got the college football bowl season is upon us, really started in earnest on Saturday. Using the promo code BOWL, BOWL, you get 50% off the college football and college basketball projections from Matt Gajewski. That's right. Both sports are coming along for the ride. That deal, I believe, ends on the 21st, so you got about 3 more days to take advantage of that, and then it's going away. But I tell you, these college basketball projections are outstanding. And for those of you that don't have Fantasy Cruncher, they do offer college basketball free. You want to check because sometimes they don't pull all the slates in before you sign up for your contest, because otherwise it's going to be a pain in the butt. But if you don't have Fantasy Cruncher, they do offer that free. You get the Gajewski projections, you upload them in there, and you can test out what an optimizer is like if you don't have an optimizer.
Yeah, and some people in the chat are wondering how old we are, EMac, and we've never actually revealed this, but a lot of people don't know that I'm actually older than you. People have always assumed for whatever reason, people have assumed otherwise, but yeah, I'm older than EMac.
It's true. I'm actually born on leap year, so that's how.
Yeah, so you only age once every 4 years, but yeah.
Correct.
So I am 58 and EMac is 27.
It's pretty good. That's pretty good. Did you double your age and half mine? Is that what you did there?
Just trying to give information to people in the chat. People want to know how old we are.
All right. I'm in my 50s now. I never thought I'd be doing it this long. I'm in the DFS world, but it's been such a fun ride. And I've been able to remain profitable that my wife's like, cool, I know where you are. Your nose is at the computer and you are getting me gift cards and prizes. So she has quite a few DraftKings prizes that works out well for her as well, Greg. So happy wife, happy life.
We've got lots of people in the chat guessing ages. I already told you guys, I already told them the answer and they're still guessing.
They don't buy it, Greg. They don't buy what you're selling. All righty.
By the way,
we are at lock. Yes, I was going to say, any other final thoughts you want to impart upon our loyal audience here?
No, that's just about it. If you guys haven't done it yet, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you want to sign up to any of the tools we have at stochastic.com, football package, Links included for that below. If you just want the lineup generator, so you just get lineups built for you. You get that for less than $15 a week. Got that below. And then also our college football package. Come out with our college basketball package that EMac mentioned before. Promo code BOWL for 50% off. That's about it, though, for me.
All right. You want to hit the magic red button? I can't tell which tab has StreamYard on for me right now. So.
I got you. Do we want any kind of sign off, or should we just end abruptly?
An abrupt cutout is